good morning.
And hello to you that is watching our first live of 2021. Welcome to Small Business Chat. How are we doing?
Yeah, happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year, absolutely. It's quite interesting. I was just saying to Karen just before we got on live, like how Christmas has been quite quiet, hasn't it? And just chilled out. And we were both saying we took a break from social media, and just even from work. Did you have a good rest? Did you actually relax and take some time off?
I did, yeah. I did have a couple of, or about one or two things that I had to get done, which were urgent for people who were sort of launching in January, and had some ads going out. But I tried to minimize it, just doing a couple of hours each day. So I took a break Christmas Day and over the whole weekend, and then I did maybe a couple of hours during the week. But yeah, on the most part, took a complete break. Yeah. And yourself?
I did the same. In fact, to be honest, I felt, and I don't know about you guys, whether or not you felt that more so I needed to switch off, actually just not listen to watch any posts. I was looking through, but I did not post myself. I wasn't going to put myself through it. So I signed off and wished everyone a happy Christmas. And then I did the post for just like welcoming everyone back to the new year on Monday. But I've got to be honest, I saw a lot of posts, and this is what sort of spurned on this sort of topic. I saw a lot of posts about 2021. A lot of people, I think, might have scheduled their posts thinking, yeah, let's go for it. And I think that energy and enthusiasm is wonderful. If you have it, please tell me, what you're doing, because I do feel like it's an effort. Like sometimes we have to build yourself up to feel motivated. I think that I've seen on various interesting posts over the year how motivation is almost like a muscle. You're just not motivated all the time. I love Mel Robbins, who does the 5-second rule. Like, she makes sure she gets that. If she's facing a task she doesn't want to do, she counts down to 5. So it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, and then she makes herself do it. So she was saying how motivation is constantly there. So it got us thinking. Having conversations with various people, had such a fab conversation. It was just really enlightening, just very truthful. When somebody was asking, like, how are you feeling? It's like, actually, you know what? I'm good. I'm good. Just not. I'm all right. I'm like here. It's not up here, but it's fine. We're coasting in gently.
Yeah,
gently. Not wearing all guns blazing like many years before, but just coasting in gently. A little bit of trepidation, really. And then I got the wall planner, which we were talking about on LinkedIn, which is quite funny. And I always said, it's like, I want to see the trailer before 2021, before I booked to see that movie. And I got it, and I just sat there and I had to chuckle, because I just felt like this is one of the best lessons, is like learning to be flexible and flow and move. And something comes in your way, like, how can you work around it? So bearing that in mind with 2021, I'd love to ask you, Karen, like, what are you going to, like, how are you going to be approaching it? Are you, like, do you have your plans, which a lot of people have been talking about? And I think it's okay. You can feel either way. You can feel really raring to go, or you can feel a little bit more like you want to coast along a little bit longer. But plans are good. Like, I like focusing on 90-day plans. So I've got that structure in place. But how are you? Have you got your structure?
Yeah, I mean, I've been putting sort of content plan together to set days of what I'm going to do when. So I've been scheduling out a couple of those. Obviously, I've got the ongoing, we've got our ongoing shows, and then I've got my show on the Tuesday. So that's all kind of keeps on rolling over. But just trying to get more content around that. So I've kind of set out my days now from Monday to Friday of kind of what I'm going to do. So that's been kind of planned in, and themes and that I can carry forward for the next 3 months or so. Yeah. So yeah, again, like a 90-day plan, but I haven't sort of sat down and mapped out the whole year and done a goal and, what I'm going to achieve each quarter and everything like that. But, I've got the wonderful media planner diary of 2021 that you sent to me. So thank you very much, Christelle. And that's got sort of yearly and quarterly and everything as well. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to take your tip, actually, which you mentioned on LinkedIn, which is writing it in pencil. Yeah. I think that's really key, that you have to be able to adapt. We don't know what's coming. You know, everyone thinks, okay, well, 2020 was, you know, all this change and upheaval, and 2021 is going to be, yay, great. You know, I don't think we're out the water yet. We're back in another lockdown. We've got Brexit. We don't know what's happening with Brexit. So I think it's about just being flexible and not putting too much pressure on yourself. You know, I'm all about this kind of slow marketing, you know, just building it up, building up, not just sort of like, you know, going for it full-time explosions or whatever, and then it's like, oh, that didn't work, and then you've got, I think the higher you build it up, the high, the more, what's the word, the more you've got to fall. You know, that the more you build it up, the higher you've got to fall down. So yeah, I'm taking it easy on myself. I'm not being too hard on myself.
No, and that's not a sign of weakness. We were just talking, I had again, it's really interesting to see. I'm a real kick up the bum kind of person. Like, you know, I need that. And I think that anyone that speaks to me, dare they ask for advice or even guidance, it's like, well, come on, what is it? Let's dig deep a little bit. You know, it's very practical. So there is no woe is me or pity parties around situations that, you know, and I don't know if that's a strength, but I'm a big believer in resilience. You get back up, you find a way. So that's why, you know, I thought I will buy my planner, because I do need to plan the year, as in not so rigidly, but there are moments in your business, like you should have something in every quarter that you know is coming up, at least overview, either 1 or 2 points. Again, that's the planner that you've got there. I absolutely love it. What's in your business, what's around your business, there's always going to be something that you can plan. And particularly if you're a service provider, you've got products, there's going to be sales periods. Like, you have to look at that. But you can put that in there. That's always going to stay there. It's just the tactics, the way it's going to work, that might need the pencils, as it were. And so I think that's super important to remember that. So we do have, because that's the other thing that a lot of people are saying really helps them in lockdown, is having a routine, knowing that they've got to have something to do, knowing what those goals are and what they've got to work with. Because again, it could be a good distraction. God help you if you've got children and you're homeschooling right now. And just like, my heart goes out to you, teachers as well. I mean, there's so many people that are juggling everything. So, you know, again, like you, we're all dealing with this differently. So whilst it's easy for me to say, yes, I've got my plan, I could do this, I also don't have children that I am looking around for and chasing right now. So again, it's just taking the elements that you think might be able to help you and carving out that time so that you can, at least in the next 90 days, you can have your over a year, like your overview for the year sort of set out, but also like, what can you knuckle down in for sort of the next 90 days, and that would be wonderful. And then, I mean, the same as me, I have like 90 days, but then I also have like monthly and then weekly goals. So it just helps me move things along. I think
that's a really good idea, and it just makes it a little bit more manageable. You know, if you've got that sort of 90-day, which fills in with a quarter, which is almost, you can look at it seasonally as well, can't you? And then look at that as a kind of theme. So this could be your winter, and then you're going into spring, and then summer and autumn and so on. And I think there's different ways of doing it. I mean, what I did, I might have spoken to this in a previous one, was just did kind of a really big brain dump on a sheet of paper, just writing everything out, like everything that I've got going on. And it was like, oh my goodness. And it's like, okay, well, what can I take from that and prioritize, and then make a separate list and put a date to that, and then look at those again and go, right, well, what are the what things are really quick and easy that I can just tick off, you know, that I can do like in an hour or a couple of hours, and just do those first, because by crossing that out, you just feel like you've done something, and it's one more thing off your list. So so that's worked quite well for me.
Do you know what? I totally agree. That's what I love lists. Absolutely love them. And I've got to say that it's amazing after 90 days when you do your review and you look back at what you have checked off, because you might not notice it day by day, and then you look back and then you actually think, actually, I have made progress, or I have at least got that plan that during lockdown I'm going to get this sorted. A lot of the stuff that we talked about, like automation and making sure that we've got a few things in line. You know, in February, it's the company's 10th anniversary. So it's like, oh my God, I've got to do something. I'm going to celebrate. Like, these are important milestones. And I don't feel like I would be more annoyed with myself if I let that pass over because of COVID. That just does not make sense to me. So it's like, no, hang on, there will be cake. If anything, there will be cake.
Even if you're just eating it virtually.
Yeah. No, there's no virtual, there will be cake. But there's certain things, like we haven't stopped birthdays, we haven't, we've just found a different way of doing it. I think this whole pen and pencil thing, actually, it's like the strategy would be the pen, as in, you have those goals. So again, but the pencil will be the tactics of what we do around it. I would also sort of recommend, like, I'd love to ask you, like, what have you found gets you moving? Because there's so much that we found, like during lockdown, we need to exercise, we need to move, like we need to move around. We know that that's good for ourselves. We know we need to breathe. It's even on the very basic level, like health is the most important wealth that you're going to have in your life. Absolutely cannot. So actually, we've got to make sure that we're looking after ourselves, priority number one. So is that something that's, I loved your talk as well about nature, going out in nature. I loved that yesterday. So is that going to be a key priority of you? Because as well as having a plan, what's going to keep you energized and motivated to?
Yeah, definitely. I think, speaking to Veronica yesterday, who does all that, getting out in nature, even if it's just for a few minutes, she was just talking about just connecting with nature, even if it's just looking out the window, which I'm doing now, and looking at the birds and the trees, or noticing something, that just looking a bit longer at something, you start to notice things a lot more. So yeah, for me, just spending a bit more time doing that, try and get out for more walks and that as well. Obviously we can't be doing networking and visiting friends, and limit the time as well that I work at the computer all day, but it's limiting the time of sort of Zoom calls and things that you do as well. So just really focusing down on the ones that you want and plot those out in your diary. So because if you don't plot it out in the diary, you won't see how many there are, and suddenly if you're just signing up to everything and you then you suddenly look at your calendar, you've just suddenly got all of these things booked in, and it's just like, oh my goodness. And then you'll actually just make excuses and not attend any of them. So I think it's quite key to just get that good balance.
I block out days for not so much calls. That might be something I was considering that yesterday, actually, because straight away I quickly realized my calendar is going to be booked up very quickly with calls, which is a good thing, because I think we need that human connection of reaching out to friends, speaking to people, but I found it really interesting that straight away I thought, well, I'm blocking out Wednesday to do certain work, this for client work, and actually I might have to block out sections of, right, this is when people can book in calls to chat, and for certain calls, and then it might make it a little bit more manageable, so that you can actually
and you can do something like that with Calendly, can't you? So you can block up, you can either connect it to your calendar that you used, whether it's iCal or Google or something, and block it out in there, or you can just set specific times. So generally Monday I try and keep that kind of free to just catch up on emails, do admin, schedule my stuff for the week ahead. And then I've got the show Tuesday, the show Wednesday. So then I'd book in calls maybe on a Tuesday afternoon, or on a Thursday is quite free. So I try and book in all the calls, client calls then. So I think it's just try and get into a routine. But sometimes it doesn't always work, because sometimes you think, oh, well, I wake up, I'm feeling really creative this morning and I want to do something else. Don't be too hard on yourself. Just shift that calendar bit onto another day.
Flexibility, absolutely. Just go, there is that moment there of going with the flow. If you're getting that inspiration, like I know that when I suddenly speak to you, I will then have like loads of ideas. I'll suddenly have to so add in a little buffer after calls, like don't do the back to back, things like, it's so simple, practical tips that actually we don't really think about, because we're just on that treadmill. And there's this notion about being busy, like I'm so busy, which we've talked about before, which I will not harp on too much about, because it's like, just because you're working from home, or we're in lockdown, you have to have those breaks for yourself as well, almost really good like health breaks. One of the questions, so what was this, when I originally drafted up this episode, I was thinking trends for 2021, and of course there are lots of trends being talked about, but what I found more interesting was obviously feeling a little bit more restrictive. I personally think that it might be more restrictive, you know, until we get vaccines, or even then, like upon delivery of vaccines, how long this is going to take to roll out, who's going to get it. I think I did the app, so it might be that I might not get, you know, my parents who are more at risk, so they're more likely to get a jab in spring, mine in September. So we have to look at the timings here. So I was looking at trends, and one of the things that came across was like more conversational styles of engagement in marketing. So again, we're conversing, and then we'll check and look at the comments and reply, but looking at sort of how people want to engage with other people and connect, like finding that connection even though we're restricted. What does that look like? So I thought that was an important one. So what are you going to be doing to connect with others? Because you've got such a great community, you're growing that community. I'm loving my communities, and you know, where I'm networking and meeting more people. What are you going to be doing going forwards, do you think? Is there anything that you've seen that's interesting? Or
I mean, there's a couple of ideas I'm working on, but I mean, I've joined a couple of memberships as well, which is sort of really within my niche, so that's getting quite busy now. So there's kind of weekly mastermind calls, and there's weekly community calls, and again, it's starting to fill up, so I have to kind of look at it and go, okay, well, maybe I do one call this week and then do one of the other calls another week. So I do see this kind of, from what I've seen this trend towards bringing sort of niche communities together and collaborating and helping each other, support each other in business, so people shouting out, well, I've got this issue, whatever, getting feedback from other people on that, just sort of doing a kind of reciprocal thing, here, I need help with this, you need help with this, let's see how we can help each other out. So I think there will be a lot more of that, because I think, people need to, if business is slower, people aren't going to have huge amounts of money to spend out on things. So you've got to look at a bit more, different ways of working together and learning things.
And my highlight of the week so far is that I've been introduced to this more conversational app called Clubhouse, and it's really interesting. So we're putting out a lot of content that might be watch a video, or come join us on this live, and actually we'd love to hear from your comments. So if you've got any feedback, we invite you. But what does that look like going forward? So there's a new app that's being trialed at the moment, and I'm not wanting to
called again
Clubhouse, and I'm not wanting to FOMO when it comes to social media. I really am not. And even though I'm seeing a lot of people rave about it because it's quite addictive, what it is, it's an audio app. So you join the Clubhouse, and then you can join conversations. And what I particularly like about it is that when you join the room where the conversation is being held, you're being invited. You can actually join in the conversation. So you can raise your hand if you have something to say, and the speakers or the panel can actually nominate you, so that you can share that platform with them, which I'm absolutely loving. I'm loving that concept of it. Of course, I'm already seeing posts going, I've made this many sales from Clubhouse. It hasn't even launched yet. It's still very much in beta. Can only get it on iOS model. It's really interesting to see, but I'm loving this chatting to people and finding people that you can talk to rather than messaging, hearing their voices. It feels like, as we've been going on and on and on, this need for connectivity and finding different ways is becoming more important to us. And so I'm really interested. I can't see that. I'm not predicting anything, but I do like to see sort of something as innovative as that going.
Yeah, that's really interesting concept, because there are a lot of people who just said, it's too much of on screen and video and everything, and it's just nice to do stuff via audio.
Yeah, and it's like the way that I kind of see it right now. I mean, it's great if you can participate and you can link your Instagram and your Twitter profiles on. And obviously, if you're if it's a business, put your profile up that you would do, maybe LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever. But it is really interesting to see how that works. And when I'm looking at how this need for listening, making sure that we're I think having that time, there is the benefit of planning, but there's also, I think, taking that space to make sure we can be a bit more reactive and a bit more alert to how people are feeling and what their reaction is. I know that during the first lockdown, there was a lot of sales pushing, not in a bad way necessarily. I think that if you have a product to sell and it is of value, and of course you need to be out there, you shouldn't be put off by that. But I think we're savvy. We can see when there is we can see when you're pushing something that just not so altruistic as you're claiming. It doesn't have to be altruistic, but honestly, it's like really. So on that hand, it's like whilst you're pushing something, and I think as well when you're I'm already seeing people on there like selling like, oh, how to build this following, but it's just a really interesting space. There's loads of topics, interests that you can talk about. So I find it really quite fascinating. So that's kind of like my highlight of, oh, let's see what this year is going to bring, how we're going to connect. I'm really looking at that, ways to make sure that we're connecting better.
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's a few other platforms, that I was looking at, sort of in the sustainability sector as well. But again, I haven't had a chance to really delve into them. So, there's so many exciting things out there, but it's like, which one do you choose, isn't it? And which one do you spend time on? So I think that's where I've got to sit there and, plan out my 90 days, my months, and then my weeks, and just go, right, okay, well, that maybe I focus one day a month or something, or one day a week, a couple of hours a week or whatever on a particular thing, because I think otherwise it just becomes a bit overwhelming. And also I think, a lot of people have been struggling, sort of locally when small businesses shutting down and stuff like that. And it's really hard. So I think it's time to sort of, just sit back, don't be too hard on yourself, and maybe just look at your passions, what you really like doing, and maybe try something a bit different, or look beyond just your local community. There's a global local community, people who are just like you, but in other parts of the world, so try and connecting with people outside of that. If you're struggling to find kind of clients and stuff locally, why not look beyond the borders?
Absolutely. And I also know as well, to keep me going, like last sort of like note of it, I think there's certain things like definitely keep moving. I'm going to be blasting more music up, like definitely during winter. These are like more practical tips I'm going to be having. I've noticed that it was so busy working that you just think, oh, I haven't actually, and it's like, no, there's some really good tunes out there. Actually, just to create a little bit more positivity. But I find, for an introvert, I find this hilarious that I'm saying it, but literally having a chat with somebody that I connected with on the Tuesday, going, well, actually, this is how I feel. It was just so much more refreshing and energizing than actually. So yeah, I think there is a point in that connection and what we connect with, and making sure that you can have the plan, but you also have to fuel yourself to get like through that journey. So and
don't be too hard on yourself. So I sometimes, if I get to sort of 3 o'clock and I feel like I'm just sitting there sort of staring at the screen and not really getting much done, I'm just shutting it down now.
Oh, good.
You know what, just I'm not getting anything done, there's no point, close it down, and just that's it for the day. Tomorrow will be a better day. So I think it's just I think just don't be too hard on yourself, and take that time to do what you can.
Good note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us. I haven't had a chance to have a look through. We've been talking away, so I don't know if you have, but if you leave a message, and if you have any thoughts, just let us know, especially if you're catching on the replay. But lovely to hear from you, and we will be back. We're kicking it off. We're starting again. So yes, we've got some great episodes lined up. I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation into 2021. Wow.
I know. Bit of a mouthful, isn't it? I've just got used to 2020.
Could anyone get used to 2020? I don't know. Thanks so much, guys. Take care, and we'll see
you next week.